Welcome everyone. For you to come in this short notice to put together this press conference, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed, President of Eritrea and Afar State in Exile. I have from my right Warren Creeds, President of Kango Afar Foundation. Warren, as many of you in the Afar communities in the diaspora, as well as the Afar people at home in Eritrea, Djibouti, and Ethiopia, very well know who Warren is. Warren is currently a president of Kango Afar Foundation, which is advocating for the Afar human rights and relief and education. He's been to Afar, in Afar State in Ethiopia 10 times. And he's been to 2 camps in Barahle and the Aisaita camp. He is respected lawyer here in Canada, in Ottawa, and has been advocating on our behalf and our people's behalf for many years. From my left, I have Professor Joseph Magnet, who is legal counsel for the Afar Nation. Professor Magnet is one of the most respected constitutional lawyer and expert in constitutional multiculturalism and human rights advocacy in Canada and elsewhere. Professor, he has delivered complaint on our behalf to Human Rights Council. So once again, thank you for coming here. The reason we have called on everyone to join us here tonight is very unfortunate incident that happened in Eritrea, in Dankalia, in the Afar region. As many of you have seen in the internet and the websites, and Eritrean diaspora websites, the United Arab Emirates and the coalition of Saudi-led coalition planes have targeted our people both inside Eritrea and across in Yemen as well. So the incident that we put this conference together for is the helicopter that was targeted our people in a place called Iddi and Barasoli, as the Afar people have carried out their life for so many years, fishing and making a living from the sea. So as they were making their daily routine of fish catch, they came under attack by the United Arab Emirates helicopter, killing 2 instantly and wounding 8 people. And we, of course, here to denounce that aggression against our people here inside Eritrea. We are not party to this conflict, but we have somehow been exposed to what the conflict in Yemen has brought to us. We also like to highlight or mention the most recent agreement, so to speak, the arms sales that was signed between the U.S. administration and the Saudi coalition, Saudi in particular, the military sales agreement, which is said to be around 350 billion US dollars over 10 years. And we think there is connection here because here's a Saudi-led coalition attacking our people inside Eritrea. The United Arab Emirates right now, who has a military base, which is the lease said to be around 30 years and hundreds of millions of dollars worth. So our people are somehow pulled into this conflict and are paying the utmost price, losing their lives in the country. But for now, I wanted to leave you in this remark that the Afar people, who are innocent bystanders, minding their own business inside their own homeland, have become victims of this aggression. So we want to send this message to the U.S. administration and Saudi-led coalition that they need to value our life, they need to value our way of life, they need to value our resources and our land and our culture. We have lived in this region for thousands of years, and right now we have no voice. This is why we are taking advantage of the media, because we cannot do this in our own home, and this is the only way we can defend. So those who claim to defend the rights of humanity, the rights of human beings, especially the United States administration, should look carefully how to deal with the issues of human rights, dealing with this arms deals and so on. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, President Ahmed, for including me in today's press conference, and thanks to all of you for your continued support and interest and concern for the continued persecution and aggression, to stand up against it. As President Ahmed said, I have been supporting the Afar community now for probably 25 years, representing some of you in this room in your asylum claims against Eritrea in particular. I've been to the region 10 times. I've traveled internally right up to the Eritrean border. I visited the refugee camps. President Ahmed took me on my very first trip there 10 years ago, and I couldn't avoid being very severely impacted by what I saw there, and in particular the crisis of the refugees who were fleeing and continue to flee Eritrea in tens of thousands in number, some of whom go to the refugee camps in Ethiopia that the United Nations established there. I was there before the camps were established. They're relatively recent. That took some doing, some pressure by us and others to get the UN to move to assert their mandate to protect these many, many persecuted and marginalized people. This is a very, very difficult area to deliver aid, but we needed to act, and we've done so now for 10 years. We set up a foundation. We have a local partner there. We have projects that we fund. Advocacy is a big part of the role that we play, because what we want to do is to end the conflict. We want to end the persecution, because the Afar deserve to have their rights protected. They deserve to have a voice, and it's wonderful that we can gather here in Canada today and express our concerns, which are, as President Ahmed said, is not able to be done in Eritrea so well. So we've come today to express our concerns. The humanitarian crisis has worsened, actually, in the 10 years that I've been involved in this. I had been hopeful at the beginning that we could have done something so significant to have lessened the crisis, but what we see each time I go there every year is actually a worsening of it. And that's not only tragic, but it's unlawful. I want to thank Professor Magnet for his involvement in the early years to get involved. He's one of the world's leading experts on the protection of indigenous rights in constitutional frameworks. He has asserted a new constitutional framework for a post-authoritarian Eritrea, which is profoundly valuable and important, and he'll tell you more about that. But what we want to see in Eritrea is that the people who have traditional rights and traditional territories, ancestral lands, and rights to those lands, what we want to see is that they live in peace, and that they have rights that are protected in their homelands, access to resources and so forth, and that the authority that has attempted to colonialize their area and in fact is using proxies to attack the Afar, that it gets known to the world through press conferences like this, so that the world can know the implications of American government involvement in the Middle East, and the support that they've now just signed with a coalition, and what the use of those arms and that money has down the chain and will affect and has already affected the Afar people. The Afar people have indigenous rights. They're a small minority in Eritrea. That minority has to be protected. and the world community needs to gather in support of the Afar people. And it's wonderful that you and your community here in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Sweden, in the UK, and in France, and in Belgium, and in other places, you've done very, very well to establish yourselves. A credit to those countries that have granted you protected rights as asylum seekers. A credit to you for organizing yourselves in these countries and gathering together to support those who cannot come to Canada and elsewhere, who are more profoundly affected because of what remains behind, your families, your cousins, your uncles, your sisters and brothers, your mothers and fathers. These are the ones that we're most concerned about. We have rights to speak up, which we're utilizing today, and we need the rest of the world to understand what's going on there so that the Afar people have much better outcomes.
Thank you. I just want to underline and highlight why we are here. A helicopter gunship supplied to the United Arab Emirates by the United States attacked a civilian Afar fishing boat coasting along Eritrea's coast, simply engaged in traditional fishing, which it had done for some thousands of years. 2 people were killed, 8 civilians were injured. Now this is being followed some days later by an American government agreement with Saudi Arabia, the leader of the coalition in which the UAE is involved, to supply additional arms over a 10-year period at $1/3 trillion. In America, for the last several years, there have been increasingly strident voices, including in the Senate and House of Representatives, complaining that American-supplied arms to the Saudi-led coalition were being used to target and kill civilians. And in the last couple of years, there had been restrictions on arms transfers by the Americans to the Saudis because of these concerns about killing innocent civilians. We share those concerns because our people are the innocent civilians who are being killed. And we call on the American government today to renew and intensify its commitments that the buyers of its armaments will not be able to use those arms against civilians, and in particular against the Afar people. Our people were killed for no reason. This is not the first time. Arms transfers such as what is taking place this week need to have guarantees in them that these arms cannot be used in these ways. It's not a question of the arms not being precise. Precision weapons are used. It's a question of the targeting, and the targeting of innocent Afar civilians minding their own business, fishing to feed their people. We condemn these acts. These acts are in violation of international law, and we call upon the Americans to make sure that any arms transferred to the Saudi and its coalition partners contain ironclad guarantees that these arms cannot be used against civilians. Thank you.